What is up, YouTube? Welcome to the PBD live broadcast. We try to do it every Wednesday night so far. I think this is my fourth one in a row. Very proud of myself, keeping up with how things are going. Who do we got here today? Let's see. Why is that not working? Yeah, my comments aren't working. Can you guys not? Let me see. That sucks. Let me try to fix it real quick. Comments coming up on top of the screen are not working for some reason. There we go. There's Ed. Craig Bill, what's up? Hope everybody's having a good week so far. What's up, John? Thanks for joining us. We've had a super crazy busy week here at Palm Beach Dyno. Lots of things on the dyno. We started on the TTR intake testing, and I'll tell you what, I pretty much called it last week. I don't know if you guys watched the live feed last week, but I had talked about, testing. Do you trust it? And then there's all kinds of pitfalls that you can run into. And one of those issues that you can run into is a vehicle that is seeing some sort of limitation, which is allowing the parts to not really shine through. And we had that exact thing happened yesterday on the dyno. I'll go over that in a little bit. We also had a really funny failure, I guess, because nothing broke on the dyno, and I'll show you that video also. Today's live stream is going to focus on the 10 or 80 transmission. We're going to talk about all the different builders out there. I want to hear from you guys on what kind of experiences you've had, how long they last, how much you guys like them, what issues you see, pretty much whatever you guys want. Parker Performance, what's up? R. Wentz, how's it going? Grip Garage is back. Valentine, what's up from Houston, Texas? We'll talk about Texas 2K because I was busy today, but I tried to pause it and fast forward through the live stream really quick, and the roll racing is insane this year. Unfortunately, they've got some rain in the forecast, so they're trying to rush through things. But that didn't stop people from showing up. I don't have the results in front of me, but it's extremely fast. Brandy, what's up? My boss is here. Eric Rose, what's up? Jason, what's up? We night and day difference. We had his truck on the dyno today. We'll be doing a little video short of his truck soon. Parker Performance says keep them at a 7th gear watt. I just did 7th gear dyno pulls today on a Dark Horse 2024 Whipple setup. In fact, I've got a couple Whipple dyno pulls to show you. Those have been getting really popular. We recently sold a couple in-house builds of 2024s. Of course, we still can't tune those, but the the results of the Whipple setup are so badass. I would not hesitate to go that route. Michael Gibbons says at Midnight Performance, build his 10R80. That's obviously a very popular builder out there. There's quite a few. We'll go through and list that. One thing I wanted to do is get through some other things here, and one of those was last week. Somebody asked me about my car, which we call Dead Spool. And here it is right now. This is a live view. It's at AC Carcraft, which is where this picture's taken from. And we're doing all sorts of new cool stuff to it. From what you can tell in the picture, look at the dish on that rear wheel. That is actually not my rear wheel, but my rear wheel is exactly the same size. My wheels are there, but they had just taken it off the chassis table, and they couldn't get to my wheels because they were behind. And those are actually one of the owners, Chris, his wheels. That's why I got those wheels. They're 15 by 14 with the insane dish. Those are just fully polished. Mine are the typical black and polished mix. And then as you can see on the front, spindle mount, no lug nuts there. Look at that, badass. It has a full racecraft front end, 25.3 carbon wheel tubs, a ton of things I don't really want to go through and list. A whole new rear end, 9-inch, and it is staying 6R80. We're going to go ahead and when we talk about the 10 or 80, we're going to contrast that versus the 6 or 80 and how far 10 or 80 cars have come since they've been out versus 6 or 80 cars, how durable they are, things like that. Anyway, what else? While we're at it, I'll just go ahead and show you guys some dyno pulls that we took in the last week. This first one here. This is Street Speed 717 on YouTube. He's got a lot of subscribers. I'm sure you guys have seen his videos. That's a GT right there with the standard Whipple setup. We're not going to talk about dyno numbers yet because the video's not done. When the video will come out on his channel and Lethal's channel, we'll talk more about it. I just wanted to show you guys the pull. And then we also had Lethal's own Dark Horse on the dyno. This was actually today. It did phenomenally. In fact, what a lot of people ask about this stuff is, you know, how does the Dark Horse compare to the Mustang GT? Well, in this form, like, you know, with the Whipple setup, it's making the same power. The only difference really is the strength, the internals, things like that. But the yellow car and the Dark Horse are very, very, very close together. And of course, we've done another Dark Horse on the dyno, which was very close to these. We've done Lethal's stick shift car, and we have Kelly Aiken from Keltrax 2024 stick shift car here on the property. We're going to do a baseline on it very soon, and then we're starting on the Whipple install plus a few other things. Let's see who else we have in here. Chris, what's up? Saying hi from Georgia. Aaron Moran, is the 315 gear ratio better for a boosted Mustang roll racing purposes? That's a really good question. Basically, for roll racing, probably not. But for drag strip, it is, because it depends obviously on what transmission you're talking about. But if you're talking about, like, say, a 6 or 80 car or a 10 or 80 car, they have such a steep first gear that the least amount of gear that you can have in the rear end, the better. Typically, you're going to gear in a quarter mile for trap speed and like where you're finishing and you want to finish at peak power and your optimal gear. But that's not exactly how you do it on these really steep first gear cars, unless you're leaving in second gear, which is a whole new topic. 6 or 80, I'm not a big fan of second gear leave, although it can work on the street pretty well. 10 or 80, I like it. I mean, most of the faster trucks that we build, including my own, we set up to leave in second gear. You know, they don't have first gear. Like, you put it in drive and it's in second gear and you floor it and you're ready to go. Mendoza Coyote, do you like the DCT and the new 500s? I absolutely love it up to a certain point, but you really have some limitations there. The lack of having any access to a dealer tool for the DCT transmission to train clutches and all that really ties our hands. I did some work on those with the Datsun clutch, and it held crazy power, but we couldn't get it to shift. I know Clint down at True Suit Motorsports is working hard on that. He's got some clutch options, and they've got the cars flying roll racing. But I have not seen anything out of them from the drag strip yet, so I'm not really sure. I'm a drag race guy. I like roll racing. In fact, I was registered to roll race at Texas. The car that I was going to run wasn't ready, and I'm glad I didn't go because it's so fast this year. I thought 185 would qualify you. Nope. The bumps are already higher than that. I think the bump's going to be well into the 190s, and there's a chance that there'll be a 200-mile-an-hour car all the way down at the third class. The way they do it in Texas is there's an Elite 8, 1 through 8. Then after that, it's groups of 16. I'm not sure what the bump is for the Elite 8. I'm sure it's extremely high. I know I saw Billy, who won last year, go 225. I saw Aaron from Nth Moto go 220. And Duran, I forget his first name. He's got the GTR with the like star on the side of it. I think he might be from Miami. He went 221. So you got 3 cars above 220. I don't think that's ever happened. So pretty cool. Damon, F-150 Whipple Stage 293 octane with 331s, second or third gear leave. Definitely not third gear leave. You almost never want third gear leave, in my opinion. Second gear should be. You probably want first gear, honestly, at that on 93. You know, we can argue dyno numbers all day long, and dynos are different, but you're basically looking at 600 to 650 on 93. So at that point, you probably want first gear unless you're on a really poor surface. Back to my car, it's 25.3. Parker Performance, Brett LaSala did the clutches in my personal 10. R80 car was great for 3 years, 640 to 770 horsepower, so nothing crazy. Needs a refresh now. Yeah, and then that's a good point when we're talking about the 10R, and we'll get to that in detail in a few minutes. I want to get through some of these comments, but obviously at that power level, most of them hang at that level stock. The trucks are a pretty good example. Most of the trucks that we built that you guys have seen all have stock transmissions. Now, we've got a couple built ones going out there, and I'll talk to you about who we're using for that in a little bit. But my own personal truck, depending on what the day I dyno it makes high 8s, low 900s, and it shifts freaking awesome right now. I am using a lot of tuning to get it to work. I'm sure if you gave it the beans tune, you'd be like, I need a built transmission. It's, yeah, if you put that aggressive of a tune on there, you're going to need a built transmission. But if you play with torque reduction properly and really get everything optimized, which is why I kind of resisted the built transmissions in the F-150s, because I wanted to really push the 10R80 as far as it can go without having to build it first, so I can answer that question. What point do I need a built transmission? And the answer to that is probably, it's not going to hurt to do it at any point, but once you go north of 850, you need to really start considering it. Although we have a lot of trucks in the 850 to 880 range that don't have built transmissions, and none of them have broke. In fact, we do so many trucks, I can't even explain it. Just this week on the dyno, I was going to do a quick video like I did for the S650, but I ran out of time. But I think we've probably had 4 to 5 F-150 Whipple trucks on dyno since the last live feed. So, I'm just really happy with the way that those 10 speeds are running. I love the 10 speed in my truck, and that's partially why I wanted to make this the topic, because a lot of people hate on the 10R80, including myself. I've never owned a 10R80 vehicle myself, I don't think. No, I've never owned a 10R80 vehicle myself until the truck. I'm a big 6R80 guy, 6R80 guy, for those of you guys that saw the beginning with my car. It's been 760s. In fact, let's talk about that real quick, and then we'll get back to a few more comments. Let's see, where is that? So the big question is 10R80. Let me move this over a little bit so you guys can see it. I could probably zoom in a little bit too. How do you zoom in? There we go. All right. So here's 6R80 stuff, which has been out obviously a lot longer. We had those from 2011 until 2017. So quite a head start. So what's the big difference beyond obviously 6 gears and 10 gears and all that? The 10R80 or the 6R80 has a tremendous amount of billet parts, thanks to Blue Streak Performance down in Australia. They were the guys that decided to handle that. Now, on the 10-speed, there aren't a lot of parts available, although RSA, who is the transmission builder that we use, who happens to be next door to us, they have a 1500 transmission, they call it, and I believe that does have some custom parts or remachined parts or something along those lines. I don't know what, but there was one in the car that I drove at FL2K, and it went 172 in the roll race without even trying. Like, that car was not planning to go. We went there. I wasn't even sure what boost map I'm on. I didn't know exactly how I was going to launch it. And I just friggin' went, and it went 170 plus every time. And that honestly reignited my interest in the 10-speed transmission, because I also drove Carlos Vera's car, which he's on this list here. I'll show you in a second. And we never quite went sevens with that, but it went 801, and it was great. But like a typical 10 or 80 build, sometimes like every single pass, after the pass, the tranny would act weird. You know, who knows what's going on inside there. And then it would be okay. And then, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 passes later, you got a problem. Whereas on the RSA 1500, and it was just roll racing, which is definitely easier on them by a long shot. It just never skipped a beat. It did exactly what I asked it to. It never acted weird or any of that. So, I don't know if I'm going to wind up with one of those. The only downside to the RSA 1500 is it's extremely expensive. But, you have to decide, is it worth the price of a really expensive trans one time, or 5 rebuilds of a standard stage 2 build? Anyway, let's look at this list real quick. On this list, you've got 23 cars. 23. I don't even have the screen big enough to see them all. 23 cars on the 6 or 80 list that have all been sevens. I'm right here at number 6, which I know I could do a lot better than this. Even with the way that car was, I could have done a lot better, I believe. I did a wheelie at Mod Nats a few years ago, came down, broke a bunch of shit. And then since then, it went to AC Carcraft to get everything done. And not due to any fault of their own. It's just taken a lot longer, mostly budgetary stuff. But the big question, and, there's a lot of argument of second gear leave or 4R200 or first gear leave. I'm a first gear leave guy, but, Lund's to pass, you can't really argue with any 6-second car. So that's super impressive. And then Cody Rogers right here at 747. That's a first gear leave car. And then, I'm first gear leave here at number 6. I'm not sure about the ones in between. Anyway, we're talking more about 10 or 80s. So now we go over to the 10 or 80 deal, and boom, we only have 9 cars in the sevens. Now, of course, this may not be a perfectly complete list, but there's not that many of these cars out there. So it's probably most people. Not only is there only 9 7-second cars, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are 790s, and then 2 at 780s, 1 at 770, and 1 barely in the 760s, which, that's impressive, but there's not many of them. And Rob Little, 774, that's a swap car, which counts 100%, but he might be a little bit lighter than your typical Gen 3 car. I'm not really sure. He was just here today picking fuel up, actually. So, obviously this car came out a lot later, but I don't see that many people chasing these records like they used to. There's just the Turbo 400 stuff has become so popular that, will this list continue to grow? I'm sure it will over time, but will it ever be to the success level of a 6 or 80? That I can't really answer, but I don't think so. Let's get to some comments here real quick. Michael Gibbons asking, is FL2K, or excuse me, TX2K, Texas 2K going to be rained out? I mean, I don't know. Last year it rained for 2 or 3 days straight. The rain was probably a factor in me totaling my car last year, not because of the rain itself, but I was having issues with the car. I turned it down some, and then it rained, and I never got to try it turned down. And then, boom, it stops raining, I think, like Saturday morning, and they're like, we're cleaning the track up. You're going to get 1 qualifier in, turn it up. You're only going to get 1 shot. And that's what I did, and that was a mistake that I will live with forever. But anyway, that's life. Michael Gibbons, I tuned yours. That's awesome. What do you got? Jason says the Whipple 10 or 80 tune is not even in the same galaxy as ours. Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate that. I've spent a tremendous amount of time working on 10 or 80 tuning over the last year. We had cars going fast with them, for sure, But most people were not happy with the way they drove, and they would say things like, a lot of people didn't even hardly complain because they just thought that's how it was. Oh, that's how it is. I got a modified car. It's going to drive a little bit bad. But the reality is, we've got them driving awesome now, I think. F-150 and Mustang. We actually offered free updates to all of our 1080 customers there for a while to show them, like, hey, here's our new stuff. You can have it for free. We're proud of it. We want you to enjoy your car, and we've had a tremendous amount of feedback in that, and that only made me want to work harder on it. So very, very happy with the 1080 tuning. TJ, what's up? Surf Minion, you guys tuned mine a few months ago. Platinum 5.0 and Boca, so much better and smoother shifting. Even after trans was already replaced by Ford and still shifted like crap clunking. Yeah, I don't know why a lot of these tunes are that bad, honestly. I mean, when I sat down and really dove into it, it didn't take that long to make them drive better. Now, I think really what happens is, if I had to guess, and I can't speak for the Whipple tune, but I'm talking about other aftermarket tuners that wind up having a tune that quote unquote works, but there's some drivability issues. I think those people are going about it the wrong way and getting them to shift at watt the wrong way. They're just basically muscling their way into getting things to work, and then that's what's making all the part throttle stuff go to shit. If you really have everything calibrated properly, which takes a lot of time and logging and all that, at least in the beginning, it really comes together. And I love a 10 or 80 way more than I used to. They're a lot more difficult to tune, but they're also, when they drive properly or correctly, they're awesome. That 10 or 80 shift's pretty damn hard. Yeah, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but some of them do. Hey, it's Pedro, what's up? Rocco, can I recommend anyone in New York that rebuilds 10 or 80s? Well, that's a great question, because that question could be asked about engines or tunes, right? Do you go to a local tuner? Maybe, but probably you're going to use us or Lund, or, there's so many tuners out there. I don't know how many of them are qualified, but, so if you're not going to get your car tuned locally because that guy hasn't touched a lot of cars like yours, why would you get a transmission built locally? Now, transmissions are slightly different because it's more mechanical and there's specs. And if the guy really knows what he's doing, he could probably build it without a lot of help. But in my opinion, for the amount of money you spend on these things, and it's not just the cost of the transmission, it's the cost of, especially if you don't do it yourself, but even if you do it yourself, the time and effort of taking the trans out, putting it back in, you want to make sure it lasts a while and it's correct. So just like I handle my engine stuff, which I personally use TKM, but there's a lot of good engine builders out there, but most people are getting their engines from outside of their area. We have FFRE in Florida, which, if I would consider FFRE also. I just personally have a good relationship with the guys at TKM, all the guys, Kevin Mullins, who is the owner, and the namesake, that stands for the Kevin Mullins, if you guys didn't know that. Sammy, Jonathan, all those guys are great, great guys. But FFRE is good. RPG does good stuff. L&M has done good stuff. There's lots of good builders out there, but most people are not getting their engines locally or their transmissions locally. So I would just consider, maybe consider like the national builders out there, and we'll go over all those in just a few more minutes. I want to get to the rest of these comments real quick. Brandon B, 10 or 80, 23 F-150 doing the rear, but unsure what gear to go with. Plans are ESS or Vortec. Should I stay with 331 or 355? I can't really answer that on Sentries. They're not obviously as popular, and I haven't done a Vortec or an ESS on those. We've done some pro-charged ones remotely. The Whipple and the turbo setups are definitely more popular. So to answer that question, you have to tell me what converter you're using, power level, and those sorts of things to really say. If you're not going to change the converter and you're not making a ton of power, then you're going to want a decent amount of gear to get the thing moving if drag racing or dig racing is important to you. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those brands that you mentioned, but I'm a Pro Charger guy when it comes to centuries. So, oh, I see. You said 700-ish. So, yeah, if you're not going to do a torque converter, it's going to be really lazy out of the hole. So more gear, the better there, probably. I'm sorry. I should learn how to say this. Abdul Rahman. What's up, Saudi Arabia? Got to give me a nickname to call you because I'm not very good at speaking English, let alone foreign names. Pedro, you guys have full access on the 10 or 80 torque management on versus off. Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about full access and tuning because Pedro brings up a good thing. So, trying to think of how to explain this the best way. When you talk about commercial software like HP tuners and SCT, that is a glimpse at what parameters are actually available, right? And some of that is because it takes time to map everything out, and some of it's on purpose, right? If HP tuners just laid on you every single parameter that's available, most tuners would crumble because most tuners are going in and looking at seeing what's available and using that to make decisions. If there was 10,000 more tables to go through, they would be lost, right? So whether it's HP tuners trying to filter things or SCT trying to filter things, or they just don't have everything mapped out, if this is everything in the tune, you might be looking at this much of it, right? So there's other parameters in here that may be useful, but HP tuners does not have those mapped out. That doesn't mean it's not in the tune. It just means you can't see it or change it. Now, top tier tuners out there can change those things. There's various ways to go about it. The most commercial way to go about it would be HP tuners, and SCT has a user parameter feature where if I know the address, so this is the whole entire, every calibratable number in the tune. And then this is what HP tuners has mapped out. But I want to change this right here. Well, if I know the address to that, right, and everything in the way it works on these files is everything's at a specific address and a table takes up a certain section and there's scalars and functions and arrays and all that stuff. And we're not going to get too deep into the weeds here. But if I know the address, HP tuners has a feature that I go in and I map out the table, and then only I can see that, right? HP tuners, it's not adding it for everybody that runs HP tuners. Only I can see that. And we do that all the time, and I don't talk a lot about that, and I don't want to send people on a wild goose chase on trying to figure it out, or, I want to keep some competitive advantage there. Most people may not have the resources to know how to add that stuff. I used to work at Diablo Sport doing reverse engineering on these exact things. Like I would help map the things out for Diablo Sport, which is not a popular software anymore, but back in the day it was pretty popular. And I learned all that stuff at Diablo Sport. So that was like a super important part to my success in tuning, even though I wasn't there a very long time. If I didn't have that experience, I would not be where I am today. So I am very appreciative of working there, even though I didn't stay there very long because I didn't like it. Holy cow, we got a lot of comments. I didn't realize what was going on here. Let's get through them real quick, and then I want to get to the main topic. What do you recommend? Who do you recommend to build a T56 Magnum XL? I use, we don't do a lot of that anymore because there's just not that many stick shift guys, but I always use Liberty up in Michigan, but there's lots of people that do that stuff. Tick Performance does it. You guys can throw some names in there in the comments if you want. I can give you my opinion or if I know anything about them. But Liberty or Tick Performance, I'm not sure who else are like top tier tranny builders for stick shifts. But if I was going to build one, I'd probably go to Liberty. What power adder would you recommend for a 2020 F-150 5-liter 4x4 with 355 gears? Truck sees most. Yes, we do. I don't know if I've done a flex tune on a 18 to 20. We do flex tunes. We did a flex tune on Jason's truck today. He's got a Shelby single cab, and it made like 632 or something like that on 93 and 700 or 718 or something like that on the flex tune E40. So as far as power adder, I would, Whipple. I love turbos. Turbos are awesome. But it just really depends on how serious you want to get. And a turbo isn't that much more serious, but you do need things like a boost controller. You don't actually need a boost controller. I don't know, man. My opinion on that's changed after doing the Hellion kit on the truck that you saw on our channel, because it didn't suffer from not having a converter. Like in the past, like say it was a 680 truck or car, to really make it work, you got to have a converter and all that. With these 10 speeds and the way the converter's set up and the turbos that are sized, everything comes together so perfectly that we went 1.5 60-foots on the street with this truck with a stock converter. That is getting a converter in it, but right now it's stock. Brandy says, not Coca-Cola again. TJ, no Coke, Pepsi. I used to be a big Pepsi fan. I was always like anti-Coke, but for some reason I switched teams. John Lopez, you seem to be Captain F-150. Right now, yeah. I mean, I don't know about that. We're doing a lot of them. So if you want to look at it that way, yeah. Palm Beach Dyno is doing a tremendous amount of F-150s. I think a lot of the reason people like dealing with us is not only do we offer good tuning, but we try to run the most professional shop we can here. We've got phone numbers you can call. We send out, quotes that are very detailed and professional. So the people that like to deal with a more professional environment really seem to flock to us, and then those people recommend us. And before long, we've always tuned F-150s, but because of the F-150 craze, plus I was wanting one myself, we really dug a little deeper than we normally do. And we did the same thing on GT 500. We didn't do that with Mustang GT as much because we don't really need to, because we have so many of those customers anyway. Although I do kind of regret not having a 10-speed Mustang at one point. But I've got one now, and it's a 4x4 and it has a bed on the back. Jimmy says, what's up, Ken? I'm wondering, are we getting any closer to getting a tune for the 24 Mustang and beyond? Nope, not at all. I'm very negative about that topic. SN95 Mustang Garage. I saw Luna wreck his car yesterday. Yeah, that was very unfortunate. I hate to see anybody wreck at all. Although it seems like there's no good wreck, but I mean that rear corner of the car got really smashed. But hopefully that's fixable. I did see one thing he did on the pass before that where he threw the flashes on Cody Rogers, and I don't have a horse, or I don't even know what you call it. I'm not involved in either one of those cars, so I don't really have that much of an opinion, although I do like Cody and I talk to him occasionally. And throwing the flashes on your buddy is one thing, but throwing the flashes on somebody that's not your buddy, it's not a good thing. What up, Walter? Kevin says he loved the 1080 right up to the 940s. I think that's a very good comment. Very good comment. That's pretty common, because they're badass up to a certain point. Like my truck, I'm like, I love 1080. It's awesome, but my truck, based on what I ran after I put the slicks on it, it's probably could go like a 950 to 960 in really good weather, but that's at 4,500 pounds. So that's about where you're talking about. And, but it's stock, so maybe with the built trans, I'll go further. Brian Luna ran 6.9 in the quarter. I do not believe that's not true. He did not do that with a 680. He did that with a turbo 400. He did have IRS. That's what you're thinking of, but he did not have that. Ray, what's up? Hey, man, Carlos asked me if we could put a 10 or 80 in your car. No, I don't want to do that. That's up to you, man. But if I were you, I would stick with the stick a little longer and play with it some more, or, maybe consider a turbo 400. I know that's not the best roll race transmission. TJ says 10R tune seems to be on point. Thank you, sir. Kevin said the same thing. Walter, that was a Power Glide. It might have been a Power Glide on Luna's car. I thought it was a Turbo 400, but might have been a Power Glide. Joe Nobody, my 2018 stock PP1 upshifted so hard while decelerating in track mode. One time I thought it blew something out and started a vibration. Yeah, the big issue with 10R80s in general are related to the valve body a lot of the time. They're very sensitive to getting clogged, and once you have a valve body issue, there's no fixing it. It seems like you got to just put a new valve body in it. TJ says very happy with his rare fab, even though he went above and beyond to change anything that could be for that power level. Yeah, rare fab, for those of you guys that don't know, is now they used to operate under rare fab, and now they're called RSA, and they've really dug in deep and are going after that 10R80 transmission market. Daniel says the same thing. He has a stage 2 plus RSA. Magnolia Bloom, Ken, on a 5.0 Whipple with full exhaust, what timing do you normally run on average? Interesting question, right? So I can tell you on average, but when people ask me how much timing, you have to understand ignition time. We're not tuning an old school engine. And the reason timing is super dependent on the setup of the vehicle, which includes what camshafts are in it. Well, guess what? On a Coyote, you have an infinite number of camshafts, not an infinite number. You can't change the duration, but you're changing overlap and valve events to the point where I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but you can manipulate the camshafts to tolerate more or less timing. Sometimes that works in your advantage. So you can make much more power because the cams are in a different spot, right? Because you're controlling the cylinder pressures with cam timing. And on certain applications, say like 93 octane, that might be knock happy. One tuner may have the cams in a certain spot and only get it to take 25 or 26 degrees. And then other tuners may be able to move the camshafts in what may be considered a less desirable position, but you can run more timing and the net gain is much more power. I'll leave it at that. So on 93 octane, you might run anywhere between, 25 to 28 degrees typically. But there's some differences like what I just mentioned. ESS, leave those guys alone. They live in their own little bubble. And, I saw a thing on there where they were complaining about, I guess Rob trashed them on that podcast or, said they were bottom of the barrel. And the comments were so ridiculous in that post. I was going to respond, but I'll just be the bad guy if I respond. But I'll respond here. And people were saying like that they were a representative of ESS was saying that they're the top supercharger company. And it's like, first off, their name is ESS Tuning, not ESS Superchargers. And that's because they don't make superchargers. They make kits for superchargers that use a different head unit. And they're not bad, but they're not top tier. They're not, they're great for the money. You don't see any racers running ESS. You don't see any crazy fast cars. You don't see anybody on that list I showed you running ESS. My pick and I always say I love ProCharger, but I do like Vortec. My main connection there, Lance, who was their tuner for a really long time and a friend of mine, he retired. So I don't really have that person there and for those of you guys that don't know, I'm very about personal relationships. We started a new thing on the Dyno room, which I don't have a picture of. Let me see if I can find it real quick. This time I can find it. Last time I told you guys I'd find something on Facebook, and you just watched me stare at my screen for 20 minutes, and then I never found it. But it wasn't 20 minutes. But we started this new thing here. Look at that. I found it already. Where I'm putting all the companies I support up on the wall. There's way more companies than this. This just started because I had an HP tuner sticker and I'm like, I want to put that on the wall. And then I found a Forge Line sticker and I'm like, those guys should be on the wall too. And then it just started running away. And then I realized, well, there's lots of companies there. I don't have their stickers, but I feel like they should be up there. So I got Kill Track up there. There should be a Pro Charger sticker up there, a Whipple sticker up there. My buddy Mike Galimi asked me to put a Hot Rod magazine. They do more than just a magazine now, but Hot Rod sticker up there. And Mike's a good buddy of mine. I really like that magazine. I like all the people there, so they're going up there. So personal relationships are really important to me. Vortec, I don't really have one, so they're kind of secondary to me, although they're great. Mike, who's our one of our sales guys, he has a Vortec on his car. It's awesome. It's fast. So there's really nothing wrong with, and there's nothing wrong with the ESS, but I don't consider them a top tier. Oh, Jason saying he drove 1,400 miles down here to get tuned. I appreciate that. I hopefully enjoyed Florida for other reasons too. Love. Oh my God, there's a lot of comments. Appreciate you guys really participating here. I hope you guys are enjoying me going through all the comments. A lot of it does seem to have to do with 10 or 80 stuff, but I want to talk really about 10 or 80, and then we'll get back to the comments. This will be the last one for a minute. 2017 Shelby driver mod is going in and out. I've read that driver mode is going in and out. I've read that 2017 Shelby. I don't know what that is. I guess it's like a Shelby American vehicle, because there was no Shelby for 2017. It's probably like the Whipple one. Taking out a fuse. No, I don't think that works, where if you take out a fuse, it'll start in a special mode. If it does, I need to know that, because it would be great. Trigger says Bobby tuned his 10 or 80 on E85 and it rips. That's awesome. Bobby's a great asset around here. He's been an awesome addition to the team. He's coming up probably on close to a year now with us, and he's been awesome. He's part of the family. Everybody here is part of the family. So let's talk about 10 or 80s for a second, and all the builders out there. So I mentioned RSA. They're great. They're next door to us, so they're here in Florida, and they do a lot of transmissions. I think they also do 10R60s, which are an Explorer STs. Then you got Midnight Performance, who does, if I had to guess, they're probably doing the most 10 or 80s. And Manuel Gomez, he's obviously very well accomplished with 10 speeds and just this type, any of those cars, he does a great job with. He would be a guy I would recommend. One name that I hear a lot, and I have zero experience with him, so why don't you guys tell me if you guys have experience with him, is Richardson Performance. I know Pedro, who's in here, or if he's still here, uses Richardson, and Kelly Aiken told me from Keltrack that he knows a lot of his customers use Richardson, so I would assume that's another great option. So there's 3 right there. You also have Signature Speed. Anthony Ballard does a lot of 10 or 80s. I don't know if he's doing as many in the really crazy cars, but he's definitely capable and does a great job too. So, what makes you guys decide where to go? Are you following the hero type of mentality? Like, well, I like this car, this guy does well, so if he runs that transmission, I'm going to run that transmission. Or are you trying to, I think that happens a lot, whether it's tuning or getting a car built or what power adder you're running. A lot of people look up to other people. Pedro's another good example. He had his little fight with Whipple at one point over his car, but now he's going back to Whipple, and because of that, a lot of other people are going back to Whipple. So people tend to follow Pedro, which route he's going, and that's not a bad thing. Pedro's a good dude. He's got fast cars, and I met Pedro a few years ago, and he was really just getting into this, and he's come a long way since then. So, but the point is you don't want to pick somebody just because they're popular. Although I'm not here to tell you who to use. I'll tell you who we use. And, this is not a negative towards RSA, but partially why we use RSA is they're literally next door. I don't have to ship anything either way. I use RSA because they have that extra high level that nobody offers, 1,500 horsepower. It's very expensive, very, very expensive. But that option's there, and I don't know that anybody else offers that. So that's why I use them. If I had to use anybody else, we would have to start shipping things out. So that adds hundreds of dollars to the build right off the bat. And the other nice thing is if we do have an issue, they're right next door and they will instantly take care of it. We had one issue, and it's a dumb issue, but there was one little seal leaking on the gear selector, and they came over right on our lift, changed the seal, took like no time at all. If that was somebody else's transmission, either we would have had to do that, so now we're going into somebody else's work, or take the transmission out. Obviously, we're not going to do that for something that small. So that's an advantage for us that most people don't have, is to have what's considered like one of the top transmission builders right next door. But if they're not right next door to you, who are you using and how are you picking them? And, you know, I also like to hear from the people out there that have, you know, the faster vehicles, and how long are they lasting and what kind of issues are you having? Because to me, it seems like a mixed bag, but there's lots of extenuating circumstances as to why people have issues. You know, people not having the transmissions filled, having them overfilled. You know, there's a million ways to go wrong. And it's not just with 10 or 80 stuff. It's with everything with the car. We just happen to be talking about 10 or 80s today. But, you know, I have multiple GT500 customers who never have their trans filled right. And, you know, if you have a brand new GT500 and you've done a lot of work to it, are you going to check the trans fluid? Probably not, you know, but you should, because they've come underfilled from the factory. Or if you've changed the transmission fluid and you didn't fill it back up right, then that's going to cause you all sorts of problems that you're going to blame on your tuner or blame on the transmission builder if it's a 10 or 80. So that's the problem with this business, is there's so many pieces to these puzzles that have to be put together properly. And if they're not, you're not going to be as successful as the guy down the street. So, you know, I guess really what I'm getting at, that I didn't really plan to get at, is if you're not qualified to work on your own car, it's okay to still work on it, maybe, if you have the right person holding your hand or the right person giving you advice. But I run into a lot of situations where people are doing the work themselves, but they're not getting advice from the right people. They're getting advice on Facebook, which, you know, if it happens to be me or other qualified people responding, maybe that's a good spot. But the problem is I'll see a question and there's already 30 or 40 comments. I'm like, I'm not even going to comment because it's too late. Whatever has been said, I'm not going to be able to break through the bad advice that might be in here. So the best advice is, if you can afford it and you're worried about your car, have somebody qualified do it for you, which is somebody like us or a shop equivalent to us. But if you can't do it yourself, try to make some local friends of people that do this stuff on a regular basis, have made all the mistakes already or most of the mistakes, and you'll go way further ahead. I mean, that's how I started in this business. I bought my Mustang in like 2001. I didn't know anything about cars, but I had some really great people around me in the Cincinnati area who I latched onto, and they helped me, helped me put cams in my car. Brandon Allsep in Cincinnati, and all the guys, Craig Newport, who works for BTR now, but he owned Cincy Speed back then. He was a great help. And there's a million people. I don't want to name everybody. Tons and tons of the Cincinnati crew were very helpful and instrumental in me learning. But if I just tried to do that stuff without meeting any of those people in person or getting any hands-on help, and just, hey, how do you, back then Facebook wasn't obviously what it is, or, there was some forums and things like that, which were very helpful, but still not to the point where you should be taking that as your only advice. And that happens today, even though there's 10 times more information out there than there was in the early 2000s. You still should have some local people that are holding your hand if you're new to this. Joe Mama says, that's a funny name. I wish you guys were close to me. I'm in Cali, 10 or 80 on my 2019 Mustang. Went out at 18,000 miles and bone stock. I do drive or get hard, but I do drive it hard, but I actually drive my Trackhawk much harder. Yeah, I think that the Trackhawk has the 8-speed that a lot of the Hellcats have. That transmission's pretty badass. How would you mod a 2020 GT500 to make 850 to 900 horsepower as reliably as possible on E85? It's a lot easier to get there on E85. I mean, the number one mod for any blower, stock blower GT500 is a ported supercharger. It adds a tremendous amount of power. So basically, you could take ID 1050X, ported supercharger with a throttle body, cold air kit, some exhaust mods if you want to do that, and with like a 2.8 pulley or so, it should make that no problem. Our our ported blower setup with a 2.7 pulley typically makes almost 1,000 horsepower, and you can do that on stock fuel pumps with just injectors. Flyjock, will the beef ever settle with Alex from Lund? He seems to have a massive issue with you and Rob. Probably not. I stay out of that. It's not really worth my time. I mean, you know, that's all I got to say about that. It's just, it's not how I like to spend my time. I don't like to spend my time talking about other people, worrying about what other people are saying, worrying about what other people are doing. I worry about what I'm doing. I worry about how I can make more horsepower. I worry about how I can make my customers happy. And if I do that, I'm successful. Things are going very good right now. SN95 Mustang Garage, my ProCharge 20 GT built by PBD and have a Bobby tune and Kobe tune. That's awesome. Again, ProCharger. If you get your car built here, it probably either has a Whipple, a Hellion kit, or a ProCharger. We do other stuff. Obviously, we do a lot of stock blower GT500 stuff too. Glenn, Hanlon Motorsports in PA is your Tremec source. Yeah, I forgot to mention Hanlon. He was actually here on the live feed. So that's really rude of me to not mention him. He does awesome work. He's been around longer than me. He's very, very good at this stuff. So Bob Hanlon and Hanlon Motorsports would be another great choice for a stick shift car. Joe Vera, do you tune 23, 35 F-150s? What mods would you recommend? Not yet. I mean, there's not technically tuning support for those, although other people are swapping 22 PCMs into them. And I have a good customer of mine that we've tuned many vehicles for. He's doing that with his vehicle soon, so I'll have a little bit more feedback on that. I mean, it just, as far as mods, it just really depends on, how far you want to go with a vehicle like that. But just to tune on those is pretty awesome. There's options for catted downpipes, cold air kits, all that stuff works well. Catch can's always a great idea. John says he recommends us to everyone. The work you're doing is wicked. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Michael, second that. What tuning do you? Okay, I just answered that. Park Performance, your 10R80 is still going strong in a new customer's possessions. Kevin Chandler, that's awesome. Oh man, it seems like there's not that many comments left, and then all of a sudden I scroll and I realize I'm way behind. Heavy Chevy says 10R80s are starting to hurt his back. That's Jeremy, our shop manager. Speaking of Chevys, who saw the red GMC single cab on Cletus's channel? I gotta say, it got my attention. It makes pitiful power. It's probably slower than dog shit. Can I say shit? It's my live feed. I'll say what I want. But it looks pretty good. They're very, very expensive. Very expensive. Pedro says Ford has a lot of issues with valve bodies. I agree. RSA Trans holding well on Carson's cooling. That's Remington Carson. He just went real fast with his car. I saw I think it's stock motor and went like a 3-something, 60 to 130. Very cool. Good job. In California, it depends on where you're at. The best thing on something like that would be maybe to email us and we can help you find somebody, because nobody really comes to mind right off top of my head. Jason's talking about the cam time I was talking about earlier. Nicholas Boley, what is up? I guess I'll talk about it. Nick Boley, me and him, we used to go at it hardcore on Facebook. He's and I actually blocked him, but he's on my live feed, so maybe I'll unblock him. I was told by Kelly Aiken he's an awesome guy in person. We just don't get along online, but maybe we can try again. He likes the 1080 in his F-150, but wouldn't use it if he was trying to run a 7. I agree, especially on an F-150. We'll see where I go with my truck. I'm not really sure if I'll take it that far. Although, after my no prep experience, as budget allows, I would like to build the motor and try to make a run at some no prep stuff with that setup, because I think it's pretty good. When it comes to the 10 or 80, what would you say is optimal temp to aim for when setting up cooling on a 4x4 F-150? I don't know. That's probably a better question for RSA. An F-150 stock has a water. It's using the coolant, and it has like a cooler mounted on the side of the trans. It's not a great way to go. We're starting to swap out all those on F-150s to get better cooling. Obviously, well below 200 horsepower, or 200 degrees would be optimal. But I run my truck anywhere from 130 to 150 often, and it shifts great. I was talking about my own personal truck and how great it was shifting, even though I'm making 900 horsepower. But you got to remember, and this is a great time to bring this up. Any advice I give you is just based on how I operate my vehicles. But a lot of people don't do what I do. I was having this conversation, I think, with Kelly Aiken and Anthony Ballard, which is, some of these customers are just out there like, whap, 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 like nonstop. It's like, look, man, you got to respect the power you have. And I have an analogy I use pretty often, and I call it, the Post-it note analogy, which is, I don't care how much money you spent on your build. Maybe the more money you spent, the stack gets thicker, but everything has a lifespan. So if you're out messing with your car and you go make a hit, there's one Post-it note. Make another hit. There's 2 Post-it notes. Make back-to-back-to-back hits. There's like 10 Post-it notes. So the harder you are on it and the more you beat on it, it's not going to last as much as the way I do it. When I drive around, and part of it's because there's a lot of traffic around here, and, I live pretty close to the shop, so I'm not making long commutes. I don't have an opportunity to run into people on the highway and race them just for the hell of it. So that helps. But, I count my hits, meaning like, I go out on the street and the road's not super great. It's like, I'm not going to beat on it because that's one less hit I'm going to get at the end of the life of this thing, and I'd rather save it. And I'm paranoid to blow up my truck right now. So, a little bit of paranoia and respect for your vehicle goes a long way. P. Woot says, my man Anthony at Signature Speed. Yeah, Ballard does awesome work. We tune a lot of cars for him, and he's a friend of mine. TS 197, what do you think about Suncoast? As a company, I think they're good. I've met the owner. He's been in our pits before at races. He's a great guy. I guess it just depends on what you're talking about. I don't really love their valve body for the 10 or 80. So that might be what you're asking about. Beyond that, we've used their converters before. They work great. I'm a Circle D guy, but we have used the Suncoast converters. We had a Suncoast converter in Carlos Vera's car, which went 8.0 with his Whipple setup that I drove. Thermal bypass by Richardson Performance is one of the best 1080 mods to keep the fluid temp under 170, even running hard. Yeah, that's important, but you also have to address the cooler on a F-150. What are you looking for, Joe? on in Cali? Like just an overall shop, or you got to tell me what you need. Not every shop does everything. Chuck Stern, great. Thank you for bringing up Brian. Brian's one of those guys. He's a very humble guy. He doesn't get out there and push himself very hard, but he's awesome. We work a lot, not a lot, but we work with Brian. We tune cars on his dyno occasionally. I believe Kobe was tuning a car with him. I've known Brian a long time, and I have great respect for Brian. And I think he's a great shop in general, not just for 10 speeds or transmission builds, but if you're in that area, I would definitely recommend Finish Line Performance to go to. Bernard, what's up? Thanks. I love this shirt too. I wish I still had my CX1100R. I missed that car in that form. That was probably one of my favorite cars I've ever owned. So maybe someday I'll build another one. Jose, what's up? Love the consistency. Billy Jack, there's plenty of bad information out there. There's no doubt about that. Lead the Performance, man. I was just hanging out with you today. Lead the Performance. They probably belong on the Wall of Fame. I've known Jared a really long time. We used to be mortal enemies when I lived in Cincinnati because he was a Whipple supporter and I was a Kenny Bell supporter. But look how that worked out. Kind of the same as if you're I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to give VMP a hard time. Actually, for those of you guys that saw my little rant about VMP in the past, I actually needed a VMP part recently, and I reached out to Justin, and we talked on the phone, and we really worked out a lot of our differences, which really weren't current differences. It was just things that had happened in the past that really didn't rub me the right way. And, we talked through that and everything's cool now. So twin turbo LSX. I think people forget what trans were like just 10 to 15 years ago. Holding 700 to 800 stock is impressive. Absolutely, man. And that's the thing that happens. And it's not just engines, right? I mean, dude, my F-150 has stock axles all the way around. It has stock drive shaft, stock differential, which needs a new one. The stock transmission, stock engine. I mean, it's unfreaking believable how I can even attempt these builds like we are with the trucks and not really have any problems. Firestang. Who's that? Is that Dale? I'd have to guess because Firestang, that seems like it would be him. Walter, SBZ, what's up? Yeah, Walter's a buddy of mine. He's got a badass, again, Pro Charger. He's got an S550 Pro Charger with a Turbo 400 that we're going to make crazy. It's already crazy fast, but we're going to get it all figured out 100% this year. Freedom Rider, I appreciate the comment. Eric says he loves that GMC Cleat is building. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that goes once they put better parts in it. I mean, 400 wheel horsepower with supercharger is pretty bad. Interestingly enough, the guy who builds those trucks is a customer of mine, and we're working with him. We worked with him on an F-150 recently, and let me see if I can find it now. We worked with him on an F-150 that went 9s at SCT, and that same truck is now going turbo, and we're doing all kinds of cool stuff with it. Oh, what the heck, man. I should get this stuff ready ahead of time. But since we're talking about it, he sent me this picture. There's another one that he's getting done building. I believe Cletus's was a 5.3. I don't know shit about GM, so those numbers hardly mean anything to me. But he said this is a LT4 setup, so pretty cool. Now, they are cool, but the price tag on, and here's the thing he sent me, which really pisses me off majorly. This is a factory Escalade setup, and if you look closely, it has a damn friggin' 10 rib pulley setup. Can you believe that? Unbelievable. We need to have that in the Ford world. What size turbos are good for 950s on a 10 or 80? Probably any turbos. Really. I mean, 62s is the smallest I usually would go on a Coyote anyway. So 62s will definitely get you there. No problem. We got 62s on the F-150 that I posted, and that thing's going to go 950s at much heavier than a Mustang. So, and those are 62 62s. Most Mustangs, we run like a 62 66. Tim White, looks like we hurt 5th on mine around 940 indicated torque. Ah, damn, that sucks. That's a lot of torque, though. What's up? Oh, Tim, I do remember that. Yeah. Kobe, I went over that log with Kobe, and based on what I saw, it's like that same tune-up works on multiple different trucks. So that's what when I talked to him about it, I was like, unfortunately, I think it's time for a trans build. Billy Jack Pedro, he's talking about you. Automotive and performance. What's up, Ken? Lots of good information. What's up, Ryan? Ryan is working with us on some tuning stuff now, and even cooler. Let me find this, which I'm just gonna it's gonna be a live feed to my Facebook at some point, but this is just too insane not to bring up. I'm super happy that Ryan reached out to me about this project. Look at this thing. This, actually, hopefully you're still in here, Ryan. I don't know much about Camaros, but what generation Camaro is this? Or send me a picture if you happen to have it with the front end on. We were thinking it was a Gen 2. But anyway, Ryan has had some rules complaints on drag and drive events. So instead of trying to get the rules changed to his favor, he just bought the baddest car he could and put the baddest motor setup he could in it. And he's putting the baddest intake manifold available on top of it. And he's going to try to hurt some feelings. And we're really happy that he's doing the TTR intake on there. I think it's a great choice, obviously, because I sell it. But I really do believe in that intake, or otherwise I wouldn't be selling it. So awesome to have him on board with that. John the Gaptist, can you make big power on Explorer ST? Absolutely. If you don't know, we were messing with Explorer ST way before most people were. And we did really good with it. But as you can tell, looking back on my history, we tend to try to, in small bursts, I focus on different things. So whether it be GT 500, F-150, Explorer ST, and I was probably a little ahead of the curve on the Explorer ST. There wasn't as many people going crazy with them. So we were doing a lot of tuning, and the transmission stuff wasn't available. In fact, RSA builds those transmissions now, but that's back when I was working on them so much. Our main transmission, our main guy had an issue with his transmission, so I bought him a new transmission, took his old transmission, and it was sent to Ray Bestos so they can get the clutch packs worked out. It took like 2 years, but that was actually done with my money, my trans. But anyway, I'm glad it happened. So yeah, we can make big power with that. We just we don't market to that crowd very often because we can only do so much, but we work on a lot of them in person, and I would love for somebody to do a high horsepower ST build with us. ProCharge Beast, sup, Ken Dog, what up? Hey, Fire Stang, Dale Lewis. See, I knew just by this. He said Stang Bangers and it said Fire. I knew it was Dale, and I haven't seen that guy in 10 years. We had a great group of people back then. He's a fireman, I believe. That's why that's his name. Thanks for all you do for the industry, Ken. My boosted Gen 2's been on your tune since 2016, still running like a top. That's awesome, Tom. What a good last name to be a Ford fan. TJ says 30K to make 750 wheel on my 1 LE. That's a great point. It's so expensive. Look at the GMC single cab. Granted, they don't even make those, so that makes it more expensive, but forget all the money it took to make it a single cab. So as it was delivered, it made 400 horsepower with a supercharger on it. How much are they spending to try and keep up with Cletus's F-150, and they're not even going to do it. And it's going to be a lot of money. you know, I mean, Cletus has a built motor and all that, but, you know, I think it's fast. I haven't watched a video on it in a while. I think somebody said it went 9.2, so it's starting to go fast. But when it's going like 9.6, 9.7, we can do that with stock motor. Sport Roof. Hey, Ken, ordered a cold air intake for my 21 F50 a couple days ago from PBD. Any idea how long before it ships out? I think it was the SMB one. We had a little issue sourcing that out, but I think it's on its way. If that's you. Jason tuning in from Cincinnati. What's up? What's up, Jason? Can't see your picture. I can't tell by just your first name, but I assume we know each other. Or maybe you're just tuning in from Cincinnati and I mentioned Cincinnati. I don't know. TJ says Vengeance. Vengeance built the car. Ryan says he's so excited like a little kid. Dude, I wish I lived closer, man. I want to come check the car out in person, so I don't know. Maybe I'll need to plan a drag and drive that you're going on and tag along with my truck. That seems to make a very good drag and drive type of vehicle because I can put everything in the bed. And it has a trailer hitch. Henry says, I need to bring in my 2018 Ford Expedition back to PBD for a tune and a few other things. Very happy with my limited experience. Yeah, we do. You know, we do a lot of different vehicles. You know, you guys see us focus on certain things for a long time. Our videos were all focused on GT500, but we were doing a bunch of other things. Now I'm somewhat focused on F-150, but that doesn't mean we're not doing just as many GT500s. They're coming in and out of here constantly, you know. And then here is an Expedition. If you watch our YouTube channel, you would think like, who's going to PBD with an Expedition? A lot of people. We do a lot of EcoBoost vehicles, so maybe we need to give them a little bit of airtime. Carson says, Remy says, what's the intake manifold you would recommend? I know you tested them, built motor, maybe in the works sooner or later. I mean, not just because I'm selling it, but, you know, the TTR intake. I love the TTR intake. I had some input in it. I continue to have input in it. We've gotten the billet version. I've already given them some feedback on a couple small changes, and most of the changes I've made with them are not performance related, so I don't want to take any real credit there. It's their runner design, but I'm helping with other little details that as a customer, when I get it, I expect certain things to work or fit a certain way, and you know, their stuff was awesome out of the gate, but there's like a couple little things. Like I'll give you an example. When we got the carbon intake manifolds, the holes for the intake manifold were drilled super precisely, which is great, but these engines are not precise. A lot of intake manufacturers either make the hole slightly oversized or slotted, and now on the billet intake, I noticed they did that. I didn't know they did that, but that's probably based on the feedback I've been giving them, and there's probably a list of things that we've either changed or added or tweaked, and that's why I like the intake so much, because it was already badass performance-wise, and now I'm able to help them get all the little details worked out and bring out the billet manifold, which is going to perform the same as the carbon manifold, but just a little bit cheaper. So, you know, you can, you know, the carbon, I love. If I was going to build a car right now, I would do the carbon one because I'm a carbon freak and it looks so incredibly sexy on there. But I'll show it to you again. This billet one is a pretty damn close second for like $1,200 cheaper. You know, for those of you guys that don't know, this billet manifold with the carbon inserts, which is just for looks, that's billet behind that. It comes as a dual injector intake stock, meaning it already has the injector bungs for a second set of injectors and rails. You don't get the rails for free. You have to pay an upgraded fee for that. But any billet intake you buy is already going to have a spot for a second set of injectors. Now, that may not appeal to everybody, but a lot of people, including Ryan, do use that. And we have multiple dual rail setups going on some insane cars. Ryan is the only one that's let me actually share this information with you. But we'll just say there's going to be a lot more coming. Not as fast as Ryan's. They're not in pro mods, but or not, where he's planning on going with the car. But they're, normal bodied cars, but they're going to be right at the top of the heap. Midwest Drags is stopping at your shop this year for a checkpoint. That's awesome. That's going to be a nice little cruise in deal. I don't know if I can make it to Midwest Drags. I'm going to definitely try to make Sick Week this year. It's kind of crazy. I haven't done it yet living in Florida. Abby says, how much wheel horsepower am I looking at from a Pro Charger on 15 pounds for a Gen 3 Coyote Auto, and how much am I looking to spend for a dyno? Price. I suck at pricing, so I can't really tell you there. The best thing to do is to give us a call. On 15 pounds, you would definitely need to be running E85 for that much boost. And, 15 pounds, it depends on the blower, right? Pro Charger isn't going to perform the same across all blowers. There's a P1SC, which I recommend avoiding if you can, unless you get a deal on one. P1X is my choice for most vehicles. And then you have the D1X if you're really trying to push things. I would think on a P1X at 15 pounds, it should be 900 plus horsepower on E85. You need a fuel system for that, obviously. Nobody has, you are correct. And as far as I know, my screen just froze for a second. We're good though. You're right. Nobody has a dual rail setup like this except for us, as far as I know. And at first, let me see if I can find it. The carbon intake that we sell is a single rail setup, except for this one. And this is going on one of those vehicles that I had mentioned. So here is a good shot. See, now it was a lot more challenging to do the dual rail setup on the carbon, because as you can see here, I think you guys can see my mouse, the carbon comes out further here. So the injectors actually had to be tilted, and both rails mount off a common bolt type setup here that you can see. Whereas on the billet one, there doesn't need to be the angle on the injector, and then each rail has 4 mounting bolts of its own. But the important part to take away from this is TTR didn't even offer this. Somebody who was very important to me asked me to do this. It's going to be one of the fastest Coyotes out there, not counting Ryan. And, I said, hey, is there any way you could do this for me? Like, it'd be really good, and I think it's good promotion, and it'd be, a good option for people. And they got it done immediately for me. Immediately. So very, very awesome. Jason says, having a Hellion top mount turbo running a stock exhaust manifold, what exhaust manifold would you recommend? I don't believe anybody makes one that's just going to go onto your kit. So you would have to decide, at a certain point, I'm a big Hellion supporter, obviously. We just got done talking about that. But that kit's not my favorite, but at the same time, let me show you something here. Told you I was going to go to Facebook 500 times. I'm not sure. Yeah, here it is. This guy has our carbon manifold. This is Frank Intrisi. Intrisi, I think is how you say it. I'm Italian. I should be able to know how to say that. Frank Intrisi. And, some people may look at this and go, oh, wow, top mount. You can only go so far with that. Well, this car, I think this is a picture. Yeah, he just posted it. I think this is a picture where he just put new turbos on, much bigger turbos, before the big turbos, before the carbon manifold with an 18. He went like low 8s at like 172, and his car's pretty much full weight. He's a bigger guy. I'm pretty sure he told me his race weight is 4,300 pounds. He went 172 miles an hour, and I probably had 64s on it. These are, I think, 68s, and he didn't have the carbon manifold. And the carbon manifold picked him up big, but can't tell you how much because he does do some off-track racing, I will call it. Situation Coyote, Chad says Hellion headers. Yeah, but he's got a top mount kit, so those won't work, I don't think. Or will they? I guess they would. I don't know. We do so little top mount stuff that, yeah, right, because the way the pipes wrap around, you could. You just got to decide longer term, Jason, what you want to do with the car and how far you want to go with it. Because, like, if you just keep making small changes, although, like I said, Frank did great with that kit, so maybe it's not a bad plan. All right, so 1080 stuff. I didn't really. Where's the meats? Brandy wants to know where the meat is. Come here, buddy. Everybody wants to say hi. Simon, come here, come here. Come on, get up. He can barely move. He's such a lazy dog. He's sitting right here. He's here almost. He's here for every live feed. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come on. You're screwing up the live feed. He won't get up. He's just staring at me. I think he's hungry. So anyway, you know, the 10-speed stuff is really polarizing. There's a lot of people that instantly want to get rid of them. There's other people that just live and die by them. Rob Little's one of them with his, he's got the Cobra New Edge, white New Edge with the Whipple set up in the 10 or 80, and he just keeps going at it. And, you know, at his level, I think he's already been 760s, 770s. You know, I don't know how far I would keep going with it. But to that 80 and higher range, 850 and higher range, I think they're awesome. John Lund just said a new personal best in the Grey Goose. Oh, man, spoiler alert. I was going to watch that when I got off of here. All right, that's one car I already know. That's awesome. I don't think that's a huge change, but any change at that level is insane. Let's see. I don't have it up anymore. I had that list up earlier. I think it was 679. So, I mean, a few hundreds is quite a bit, and I'm not sure what the trap speed was like. All right, guys. Let's see. We're pulling up on an hour and a half here, which I like to keep them at that point. So if anybody has any questions they wanted to shoot my way, go ahead and do that now, and we'll take care of that. Otherwise, I'm going to get rolling here in just a couple minutes. Obviously, for those of you guys that love racing, make sure you tune in to Flow Racing. They've got Texas 2K on, although the weather is looking pretty poor for the next couple of days. I'm definitely going to watch it tonight. I believe they're doing another round of drag racing. Well, we do know they're running another round of drag racing qualifying because we just found out about that. But I'm really curious to see where the roll racing qualifying laid out. You know, what do you guys think about roll racing? I used to be super anti-roll racing, but then when I started doing it, and I started doing roll racing because a lot of the events that we go to, like Texas 2K or FL2K, or I'm trying to think of what else, they have roll racing built, into their schedule, and the roll racing happens before the drag racing. So the roll racing is a good opportunity to take a car out and make some safe hits on a track without launching it. So a lot of the times, especially with my GT500, I would enter the roll race just to make sure the car shifted right, make sure everything ran smooth and nicely. And, but then after I did it, I kind of liked it. I've had good and bad experiences. I went to a race that wound up being an infamous race, MITM. The guy had some issues on the year after I went, and even the year I went wasn't the greatest race. And, there was starting issues like pacing. Or no, I think that was actually Texas, where I had to rerun the same guy 3 friggin' times because he couldn't get his anti-lag working. And it's like, that's not my fault. I was the pace car. I was ready to go. The other guy wasn't with me. Tough luck. But that's just not how it works all the time. I know, TJ, roll racing's lame, but it's really not that bad. I would probably never go to a race only to roll race, but if they're having a drag race with roll racing, then I will do it. you know, typically. Although I was planning on going to Texas to roll race, but the car that I was signed up to race wasn't ready, so I just skipped it. Even though we're a sponsor, a lot of people might be wondering why we're not there. It's because we are so slammed at the shop right now. I think the guys in the shop are going to kill me. We need to hire a new mechanic. We put an ad out for that. So if you guys know anybody in the Florida area that wants to be a mechanic at Palm Beach Dyno, tell them to send in their resume because we need some help. Oliver 101, Hellion headers or Aldo Weld turbo headers? I would suspect, I don't know Aldo's kit very well, but I don't know if the Aldo Weld setup is set up as a factory replacement. The Hellion kit requires it to have a factory flange, at least to be able to just put it together right away, without any fabrication work. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to call it a night. Go watch some racing in Texas. If you guys have any suggestions, be sure to hit us up. You can message us on Facebook or Instagram. Suggestions for the live feed, any kind of feedback. Of course, if you guys need any tuning or parts, please give us an opportunity. You can call us, which you can't call most places nowadays, or at least tuners. I guess a lot of parts places do. But when you call us for parts, you're talking to people that actually race Mustangs. Mike races constantly. Pierre's had a very fast Mustang in the past. He's concentrating on family life right now, but he knows, he's like a savant. He knows dyno numbers of every combo. GT500 expert. He's become an F-150 expert. So when you call us, I feel like we can give you the best advice and, hopefully the best deals. And, of course, we can add the tuning in with it. I think that's Jamie Decker. He says his 10R80 has lived for 6 years and almost 30,000 miles now with the Whipple F-150 Platinum that weighs 6,000 pounds with me in it. It's gone 1061. Wow, that is fast. That's one thing, most of the guys we have pushing the F-150s are all single cabs. Although we've had a few fast crew cabs too. 1061's definitely getting it. Excuse me. Especially at that weight with a stocks 10R80. So that's good news. I'm not sure who tunes your truck. Maybe Livernois. They know what they're doing for sure. Aldo is front facing. That's what I would have guessed. Is there going to be a specific drag tune for the 10R80 and such as you would only run this tune for drag? Not really. I mean, we could do one that's that way, and like we could do real specific shift schedules that, like, let's say you had to pedal the car, it wouldn't necessarily downshift when you get back into it, all sorts of things like that. But most people just run the standard tune, and there's really no reason to have something different. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the live feed. And